Guys, Googling yourself can be a scary wake-up call to how much of your personal information is exposed online, even as a public figure. I'm blown away by how much information is out there about me. That's why I'm excited to tell you about today's sponsor, Aura. Data brokers are making a fortune selling your information to robocallers, spammers who want to learn more about you. Aura can identify data brokers exposing your info and submit opt-out requests on your behalf. Brokers are legally required to remove your info if you ask them to, but they make that super hard to do. Let Aura handle it for you. You can try Aura free for 2 weeks by using my link. It's really easy to set up, so you can get things like parental controls, antivirus, VPN, password management, identity theft insurance, and more for less work. You get everything at one affordable price for all families out there. I personally love Aura's parental controls because I can let Aura do the hard work of keeping my loved ones safe online. You can either let people continue to exploit and profit off your private information, or you can go to aura.com/Chael to start your 2-week free trial, or guys, just click on the link below. So I just got asked a question by Ryan. Guess what he said to me? Just how good is Alex Volkanovski? Now, this is in light, okay, the previous question that he'd asked me is, did you watch the fight Saturday? Great. Coming out of the conversation of the fight Saturday, Ryan wants to know, just how good is Volkanovski? I sat back and said, what's your math? He says, well, Charles Oliveira lost pretty handily to Islam. Volkanovski, many people thought, beat Islam, and whether he did or not, the competitiveness was there. And Ryan didn't quite get to the step I thought he was going to go to, which is Volkanovski beat Max 3 times. Max Holloway finished Charles Oliveira. That's where I thought he was going to go. Now, move that aside. I love that perspective, guys. And we used to do this to the point that you guys teased me, where I would say just how good is Conor McGregor, but there kept on being fights that would happen in Conor's absence. Whether Conor was absent from 45 because he went up to 55, whether Conor was absent from MMA because he went over to boxing. And these fights kept happening. And these guys kept winning that Conor made look as though they don't belong. And it was to the point that you guys gave me a hard time, right? Where's Kevin Lee fit into this? And even Errol Hawadi was too, just how good is Conor McGregor? But I like what Ryan's doing here because Volkanovski is one of the stars. He is one of the stars coming out of Saturday, for sure. And I want to lay out something interesting for you guys, and I'm trying to think in my mind. I'm buying myself some time here. I'm trying to think of what order is the best to do this, because while Ryan had Volkanovski, guess who I had? I had Khabib. Everything Ryan said to me about Volkanovski, that watching the pay-per-view over Saturday, watching Charles Oliveira made him appreciate and understand the greatness of Volkanovski more. I had the same thoughts, except I had them towards Khabib. Let me give you a scenario. You want to know a super fight? A super fight, right? Think about Jon Jones versus Francis Ngannou, guys. Think about that. Think about your temperature if we could bring that together, right? And you would love that. You would love that to the point that you almost don't consider that. And you don't consider that because your mind stops you as the defense mechanism because you're well aware that you can't have it. So why get excited for something that you never have the ability to enjoy? But what if? What if we took a leap and you could imagine that we get Francis and Jon together? Why not? If we're going to do Tyson Fury on a one-off, if we've already said we're just going to be silly and we're going to have some fun, and about every 10 years, Dana White will just have some fun. He separates it. Right, the James Toney or CM Punk, I mean, he'll separate it by about 10 years. But then he'll come in and he'll do something like Floyd Mayweather versus Conor. Then he'll throw his hands up and say, I'm never going to do this again. And he won't. He will get back to discipline and stringent Dana. And then about a decade later, he'll let us have some fun. I mean, I'm just sharing for you. If that's what we're going to do, if we're going to do Tyson Fury on a one-off, why not do it with Francis? Why not? And don't give me any of your answers. Well, he signed with the PFL. PFL will work it out. Why not? But what if? Now, do you want to know why you like Francis and Jon more now than you did a few months ago when you thought you were going to have it? Do you want to know why? Right. Right, if we've already established it, right? Because it was taken away. Do you want to know when an artist does his best work? Would it surprise you to know that Van Gogh died poor? Would that surprise you? The painter of the Mona Lisa died a poor man. Artists, fame and worth goes up in their death. We know that. But it's true with martial artists as well. So just let me have a little bit of fun here. Volkanovski retires. He walks away. I'm out. I'm done. And he spends that whole time getting bigger, and he tells everybody that'll listen, I'm done. I'm done. And he just lets it go. Man, nobody's going to replace Volk. That's the greatest ever. You guys believe that now. Wait until his absence, which is going to be captivated and catapulted by guys who he destroyed. And it's just going to make him look better and better and better. And then let's say that he returns in around a year against Khabib. It's a very different scenario, right? I mean, that fight of Volkanovski versus Khabib, there's nowhere where you would lay out and say, as far as MMA dreams go, you're a promoter. You got to one night, you got to make it work, but you can have any fight that you want. That one right there, Volkanovski versus Khabib, with Volkanovski's absence from the sport. That is as good of a fight as you can put together. That is as good as Francis versus Jones. And do you want to know why I bring Khabib into this? Khabib's legacy. And right, legacy is a real strange word. It's a strange word because we in this community have it as a natural part of our vernacular, but no one, and I do mean no one, has ever defined it for you. GOAT and pound for pound go into that same category of common vernacular within our industry. And even the author of the statement, who technically has poetic license over it, has never taken the time to define it. So, if Charles was the champion right now, that would mean that Charles beat Islam. And if Charles had beaten Islam, don't forget, Charles is the same age. Don't forget, Charles is the same era. Don't forget, Charles was on the roster when Khabib retired. And I almost got to say that Khabib resigned, right? I almost got to say he resigned because he was such a meaningful, he was a CEO of a very beautiful brand. And boy, did he represent a huge part of population, right? But if if Charles had beat Islam, that question would be there. It would be there because Khabib and Charles never met head to head. So what Islam was able to do was to completely protect the legacy of Khabib. And Khabib knew that when Islam went in. Khabib knew full well the risk, and he didn't blink at all. You want to talk about somebody that was confident? Khabib did just fine with confidence in his own career. Khabib's confidence within his own career is shallow in comparison to the depth of confidence Khabib has in Islam. So, when Ryan saw the fights this weekend and he thought it made Volk look good, he's right. He makes a really great point, but I've also got to put Khabib in there to a degree. And I'll tell you guys one final thought. When you have Benny versus Oliveira, and have you guys ever seen this? It's very common in old school boxing. But one guy will go to the ring, and the other guy will not come. He will not leave the locker room. There isn't a built-in mechanism to force him. It's not something that any promoter or commission thought they were ever going to have to deal with. So they don't have an ability. There's not a fine in place. There's not a suspension. There's not the loss of a point. There's not the loss of a round. There's not a disqualification. What can you do if the guy doesn't leave the locker room? We saw this one time in the history of MMA. There was something called the Ultimate Fighting Championship, and it was Randy Couture versus Vitor Belfort Gracie, Part 1. And Big John, who was the referee, Didn't know this is live. This is happening right now, and Vitor's not coming to the ring. Randy's in the ring, what we call spoiling. He was warmed up and he was prepared physically and mentally. He's now cooling down. He's now confused. His mind is now somewhere else. What is going on? At least in theory. Big John had to leave the ring. I mean, that's a whole other story. How Big John handled this is a whole other story to get Vitor to the ring. But I suggest this for you. Because if we understand there's a piece of psychology about making a guy wait right there in the moment, imagine the psychology that Benny was up against when Oliveira made him wait an entire month. I mean, this fight was supposed to happen a month ago. I thought that favored Benny. I thought that showed a weakness by Charles. I still think that I'm right. I think if those guys fought again, you could have a different result, but that's not the way we play this game. And when you do look in hindsight, that didn't quite look like Benny did it. Something was off with Benny, wasn't it? And one little thing we know it throws that way: pressure, adrenaline dump. There's all these different things in these different words, but they're real. And if those athletes can allow one of those things in, it can change the performance, which will impact the outcome. And I suggest for you, the same way that Vitor made Randy wait, and the same way as Randy had to process it, and whether that bothered him or not, we still saw it unfold. You just saw the same thing, except instead of 30 seconds, it was 30 days. And I can't help but believe that in some regard, that played an impact.